Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me today. I am Kara with Self-Care Toolbox. I wanted to talk to you guys today about self-care, and we're not going to do just your run-of-the-mill baseline self-care. So please stick with me. We're going to go through some baseline things, but we're also going to talk about some individual things. I hope you enjoy this presentation. Again, welcome. So we're going to talk about baseline needs, as I said, but then we're also going to stretch our mindset regarding wellness, think outside the box a little bit, and what makes us unique and what we each uniquely need as individuals to get beyond baseline health and just get to, happy, productive selves. So first I want to define self-care because it's kind of a buzzword that people are talking about a lot these days. The Oxford Dictionary defines it as the practice of taking action to preserve or improve one's own health or the practice of taking an active role in protecting one's own well-being and happiness, in particular during periods of stress. But actually, I talk about stress a lot in my videos, and to be more resilient to stress, we need to be taking care of ourselves all the time, right? Because then what happens is if you're already healthy and something stressful happens, you'll be able to work through it or bounce back better. So what do we need to be healthy? We all know we have baseline needs, physical needs, starting with a healthy diet. And so here's a breakdown of what women and men and teen girls and boys need in terms of, this is from the USDA, servings of the different food groups. And as you can see, also, a lot of people talk about the 2,000 calorie diet or the 2,200 calorie diet. I'm a petite lady, so I need way less than that. So you want to go and, if you don't know, maybe Google for your body weight. And there's also ways to calculate calories if you want to lose weight, to see if you have a goal for how much you want to lose a month or a week, how many calories you'll need to cut out. I have lost weight that way in the past, not recently, but there was a time about 7 years ago when I had gained some weight. I had gone from working full-time waiting tables and going to school to my first office job, and I was just a lot less active and more sedentary in my work, and I definitely saw a difference and put on a few pounds. So when I wanted to lose weight, that's what I did. For sleep, y'all are going to be like, what? But it's critical to get, and this is actually for teenagers, 8 to 10 hours a night, but adults actually need 8 hours as well. This presentation is geared toward teenagers and adults, so there are some slight differences. On the last slide, you can see that there's more servings for teen boys and men, but also teenagers in general are growing and going to have a higher metabolism. So back to sleep. Melatonin is a hormone that's naturally released in the body in the evening, and you can also get supplements of it to help regulate your sleep. But what it does is it actually gets the body ready to go to bed. And sleep is so important for adolescents. I want to talk about adolescence for a second, because what happens when the body is growing and changing in adolescence, there's also this weird physiological shift where the melatonin is actually released much later. And so that's why a lot of teens don't get tired until late at night, and then they have a trouble getting up and getting ready for school. So that's the way there's something to do with their circadian rhythms and the release of melatonin that actually happens. So the way school is scheduled right now, there are many scientists and neuroscience and education folks pushing for a later start to school time, because as I remember from being a teenager, first and second period were just the worst. I was up late and I was tired when I went to class, especially if I had math first thing in the morning. Woo, it was very challenging. Another reason sleep is so important for adolescents is because there's only 2 times in a human being's entire lifespan where so much is going on in the body and brain development. And I guess most of you could probably tell when the first time is. But if not, it's basically from in the womb to infancy to about the first 3 years of life. And that is when all the neurons are formed in the brain in the womb, like billions of neurons, which send messages throughout the brain to the rest of your body, and you're growing, you're changing, you're mentally developing. So that's all happening in infancy. And the other time is in adolescence. So your body and your brain are working so hard to go through all of these changes. And that is why it's extra important to get good sleep. If you hear any screaming in the background, it's because I have an adolescent in the house. So she's just talking to her friends or something. So bear with me on that. And then another thing that everybody knows, but I wanted to drill home, is that exercise is extremely important. And some examples of that are your cardio stuff, your walking, running, biking, whatever. And then things to do with building muscle, sit-up, push-ups, weights, toning, and then just being active, right? Walking and biking places, playing sports, or if you have an active job, that's awesome because then it's built in, right? So there's recommended, again, differences in the amount of exercise. And so teens under 18 need about an hour a day, and then adults need about 2.5 hours per week. And I've often seen recommendations for cardio for adults to be about 20 minutes 3 times a week, which is to get the heart pumping, right? But one thing when we talk about self-care and individualizing your care plan for yourself is that there are some times in our life when we need more exercise than others. There's a certain amount of exercise that we all need, but then there's times where maybe you're more stressed that you might need more exercise to relieve that stress. I know when I was in graduate school, there was a time in my first year that I was working out like 4 or 5 times a week for an hour at the gym. And I just felt like it was absolutely necessary for my physical and mental health. So you can also gauge it. You can experiment, do 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, and see how you feel. It might make a real difference in your week to tack on a few more minutes, or to at least know that you're getting the minimum recommendation for someone your age is really helpful. So now I want to think outside the box. And we've talked about sleep, we've talked about eating habits, we've talked about exercise, but what do we want to talk about next is, who are we? What do we need as individuals? So the first thing I want you to think about is, and you might want to have pen and paper during this presentation if you don't already, to jot some stuff down. So pause it if you don't have any paper, because I'd like you to do some list making. So the first thing we're going to think about is, what are some things that you do or that you like to do when you are at your best? There's something called a WRAP plan. That's WRAP, which is in psychology and mental health circles, but it's good for everyone. And what it is called a wellness recovery action plan. And it identifies that. So people are encouraged to identify, Google if you want to get more information, but it's basically thinking about yourself and your personality. And there are certain things that everybody does if you're not doing well, or if you are doing well, when you're happy and productive versus where you're not. There might be certain things that you do as a person when you're feeling your best, that maybe when you're not feeling your best, you don't feel like doing those things. So let's look at what those are. So here's some examples: laughing, giving, creating, maybe taking pictures, sewing, painting furniture. Cooking is a good creative hobby. Practicing gratitude, just like when you're normally doing well, you might feel more grateful for your friends, your family, having a place to live than maybe other times. When I have other videos where I talk about how certain emotions have like a narrowing effect and it's hard to feel positive stuff if you're under stress. So you might just feel like more happy and more grateful and be thinking about things you're grateful for. Socializing, you might be more willing to spend time with friends and family, or put time in your relationship when you're feeling more even and happy. You might be learning new things like a language or an instrument, or reading books about things you're interested in. You might be taking time to pray or meditate, enjoy silence, enjoy communion with God, or think about something that you've been reading that's like inspiring you and meditating on that. And you might actually be spending more time outside. So these are just examples, but I'd like you to take a moment and think about, what are some of the things that you do when you're doing your best, or that you love to do when you're in like your really happy states. Okay, and so now we're going to shift gears and talk about time management a little bit. So some strategies and tips for time management are to schedule things, to use calendars and reminders, to build healthy habits into existing routines, to do a buddy system, engage yourself, be self-disciplined, set realistic goals, track your time, and have a reward system. So I want to kind of go into each of these just a little bit Don't mind my creaky chair. Yeah, so I like to work out. At this point, I'm trying to work out 4 times a week. I actually was going to do 5 days a week, and this goes into setting realistic goals. But I was talking to a friend of mine about it, and I was like, I'm going to work out every Monday through Friday. And I have this really good friend that's in great shape, and she said, hey, actually, I work out Mondays and Tuesdays, and then I take a rest day on Wednesday, and then I work out Thursday and Friday. And I was like, that actually sounds good, especially because for me, I'm mixing it up and I'm doing cardio a couple days, and then I'm mixing like cardio with strength and flexibility on the other 2 days. So I can be a little bit sore, especially it seems like the second day after. So I'll schedule it, and I'm trying to do Monday weights, etc., Tuesday cardio, Wednesday off, and then by Thursday I'm ready to do, weights and flexibility and stuff again. So that's working well for me. Find out what works for you. Use calendars, use reminders, use your phone, refrigerator, whatever you need to do. And then another thing is just building those habits into existing routines. If you've ever worn a pedometer, that's a good way to get your steps in and actually see what you're doing. But, even if you're not in a pedestrian friendly place, you can park farther away, right? Get some more steps in the parking lot. Texas, we have these huge parking lots. That's where I am right now. Whereas before I was in San Francisco and Boston, and I was like walking for miles and taking the subway and the BART. So you kind of find ways to build exercise into your day. Use a buddy system. Have at least one friend that's kind of trying to make the same changes you are, or trying to get into the same type of lifestyle, and you can hold each other accountable and talk about how you're doing. Be self-disciplined. That doesn't mean beat yourself up every time you don't make your goal and then just quit. It just means, for me, if I get 2 workouts in one week for some reason, then the next week, I'm like, okay, I've got to get my 4 this week. Last week was tough, but I'm going to do it. So you got to do that. And then another way is just to track your time. If you really feel like you don't have time to do all this stuff, and yeah, like we're all very busy, especially if you're a working mom or something like that. But if you might actually find you have a lot more time in your day than you realize, if you don't know where to start and you don't feel like you have time, a really good exercise is to document your time for like a week and maybe see how many times you check Facebook or see how many hours of TV you watch or something like that. And back to building those healthy habits. And, maybe if you're on a commute and you're not actually driving in the commute, maybe there's something that you could do, like a creative hobby or reading or making those phone calls that you've been putting off to friends or family, like on your commute or even in your car. You could do that, but with a headset. And then, and treat yourself. If you make your goal, especially if you're consistently making your goal, treat yourself and also challenge yourself. Maybe challenge yourself if you can do even more. So now I want to talk about how habits are formed, and I'm going to get a little sciencey on you, but I think you can handle it. I've talked about neuroplasticity in one of my videos, like a 3-minute video, and how exciting it is in terms of neuroscientific discovery, which is to say, it's just how the brain works, right? It's just how our neural connections work, how signals are sent in our brain, like I was talking about before, and it's actually a superhighway. And it is so cool. So I really want you guys to just, at this time, stop and click on the links I have in the description box for this video. I have linked my prior video, if you haven't watched it, that explains it a little bit better. But I've also linked one of my favorite videos that I have shown to older children, teenagers, and adults, and it really explains what I'm talking about with brain cells and how they communicate with each other and how the pathways between the brain cells can be reformed and reshaped. So please check that out. Okay, so hopefully you're back and you took a moment to watch those videos. And now I just want to pose the question, how might knowing about neuroscience a little bit and habit change help you with self-care? I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but I think people really need to understand that the brain can change, habits can change, people can change. But it definitely does take some time and patience. And that's why a lot of folks out there, professionals and medical and otherwise, say that it can take 28 to 30 days to form a new habit. So I do not say that to discourage you. I actually say that to encourage you, that we are all capable of changing. We're capable of doing just a little bit better in taking care of ourselves. And then the more we take care of ourselves, of course, the more we make ourselves available to help others. I want to remind all of us that as Christians, we are able to access the Father anytime, Jesus anytime, to ask for help. If there's a particular habit you'd like to change, I encourage you to pray about it. If you are not a Christian but have any kind of belief in a higher power, feel free to ask your higher power for help and guidance in this matter. And with that, I'd like to just close with a little short prayer. So everybody will just bow their heads real quick in silence. Father God, I want to thank you for everyone who has taken the time to watch this video today. I ask that you watch over us, bless us, keep us safe, and help us with our habit changes so that we can be our best selves. That's physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, so that we can work on our relationships with you, work on our relationships with ourselves, and be more available to help others. I thank you so much for this glorious day, and I give you all the honor and glory. In Jesus' name, amen. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, tell me what you like, what you didn't like. This was my first time trying this screencasting thing over here, and I see some formatting issues. I'm so sorry about that, but I'm gonna post a link to the presentation itself. If you want to take a look at it in its entirety with the full screen, you can do that. Also, check out the neuroscience videos if you haven't, or any other of my videos. I hope you have a blessed day, and I hope this video helped you. And keep at it. You're doing great. Bye-bye.